Hi, I'm Daniel Seaman, and thank you for joining me here on Straight Up at the JNS Studios in Jerusalem, Israel. Well, many of us notice the fact that those who are the antagonists against the state of Israel, and I'm not talking about the jihadist activists, I'm talking about the usual fools in the campuses in Europe and the United States, don't really have a lot of knowledge of what is going on here. And they don't know about the history of the Jewish people. They don't know about the connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. They're very quick at throwing the nonsense about Jews and their connection to Europe, and we should go back to Europe, the same places where they want us to leave previously. But they really lack a fundamental understanding of what Judaism and the connection to the land of Israel is really about. 2 weeks ago, here in Israel, we marked the holiday which is called Sigd, which is the Ethiopian connection, or they're representing the Ethiopian Jewish connection to the land of Israel. And upon their return to Israel, which we all know officially was with the Solomon operation back in 1990, I believe. And then we learned that some people know of the fact that in the 1980s in Operation Moses, but there was more than just these two major operations. So I thought to shed some light on that and give some more understanding to those who really want to know what's going on here, and address the Ethiopian immigration to Israel and return to the land of Israel. So today I thought I'd talk to a representative of and an activist of the Ethiopian Jewish community here in Israel. His name is Naftali Aklum, who is the CEO of Yerus, which is a organization. He'll tell you a little more about it. I want to welcome him to our show today, and we'll talk about and give you these insights and how the Jewish people are connected through specifically the Ethiopian Jewish community. So Naftali, thank you. Shalom. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Johnny, for having me in your program and giving me the opportunity to speak and to tell the story of the Ethiopian Jews and their connection to the state of Israel, or we might say to Jerusalem.
So Jerusalem, that's the, I guess that's the meaning of the name of your organization. Can you tell us a little of what the organization does? I understand exists for 10 years now.
Yeah, so Yerus, it's a project that's it's to bring to the forefront the story of the Ethiopian Jews, not only here in Israel, but all around the world, as you and most of the people outside of the state of Israel, when they have the image of the Jew, it's mainly white European Jew. And I'm here to tell them that there is a big diversity within Jewish people. It's not only one color. It's not only white Jews from Europe. We have Jews from India. We have Jews from Yemen. And yes, we have Jews from Ethiopia, from Africa. And with this project, I'm bringing to the forefront the story of the Ethiopian Jews. And by doing so, I'm bringing to the people the awareness of the diversity within Jewish people.
Exactly. And I laughed about it because anybody who lives here lives this diversity. We know about it. Now, I worked with Israeli public diplomacy for many years, and it never even dawned on us here in Israel to make an issue out of it because it's natural. And then I'm not even talking about us, the diversity in our own community, of the Jewish community, even with Christians and Muslims. To us, it was natural, and suddenly we found we had to waive it and talk about it. So yes, we need to do it right now. And I think it's a good way with, maybe you can get into your personal story because it's very reflective of many other people's stories. By the way, not only with the Ethiopians, with the entire Jewish community, but tell us your own personal story of your family and how they made it to Israel.
So, as you know, 2 weeks ago, the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel celebrated the Sigd holiday. The Sigd is a special and unique holiday celebrated by the Ethiopian Jews in Ethiopia 50 days after the Judgment Day, Yom Kippur. 50 days after the Judgment Day, we used to climb up to a high mountain with our spiritual leaders, the Kesim. And on the top of the mountain, we used to read from the Torah, pray, fast, and we were asking God one thing: bring us back home to Jerusalem. This holiday showed the longing of Ethiopian Jews to the city of Jerusalem. And, in those days, a lot of people outside of this country speak about the term Zionism. For me, Zionism is wanting to return back home to Zion. And for the Ethiopian Jews, Zionism is wanting to return back to Zion. Let me tell you a secret, Danny. Everyone thinks that Zionism started, the father of Zionism is Herzl Theodor. And let me tell you a secret. Ethiopian Jews, the first time they wanted to return back home was in 1862.
1862. This is
Yeah.
about
Do you
20
know
years
how
before
old?
Herzl.
Do you know how old was Herzl in 1862?
No, please remind us.
He was a baby. He was 2 years old. He was born in 1860. So the first attempt of Ethiopian Jews to return back home and to do the journey from Ethiopia to Israel, at that time it was not Israel, to Jerusalem, was in 1862. So Zionism is within the Ethiopian Jews way before Herzl came to the world.
It's also true
So
with the
that's
Yemenite Jews also. They actually physically moved here, many of them, around that period of time, and people aren't aware of that. And they didn't just move here for no reason. Just like with the Ethiopians, it was a desire to return to Zion, which is another name for the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah, and if you ask me, I think that this is the desire was in every community of Jews around
Absolutely.
the world. Jews in India, Jews in Morocco, Jews in Poland. Every Jewish person, every Jewish community out there knew always that they have to go back to Jerusalem. They have to return to Zion. And, some tried, some didn't. Some were dreaming the whole time. But this dream was within every Jewish community outside this country.
I can testify to my own family from Afghanistan, my mother's side of the family, that they too dreamt about it. And when they heard, and this was from the Herzlian Zionism, when they heard after World War I, the Jews were returning and the redemption was happening, they came, checked it out, and by 1921, they were back here, and they immigrated at that period of time before the creation of the state. So this is very clear. This is very true for all, as you said, of every Jewish community around the world. But your personal story, your family itself, you came here at the beginning of the 1980s.
Yeah. So before the story of us coming to the state of Israel, there was lots of things around the world that created the opportunity for us to come in the late 70s. In 1974, in Ethiopia, we had an army revolution. At that time, the king of Ethiopia was Emperor Haile Selassie. And there was army revolution in 1974. A young guy took control of the country. His name was Mengistu Haile Mariam. And Mengistu decided that Ethiopia will be a communist country. As you remember, Adam, at that time, we had a Cold War. The
Right.
world was separated to two countries that follow after the United States of America and countries that follow after the Soviet Union. Ethiopia, in 1974, decided that she will be a communist country and that she will follow after the Soviet Union. In 1973, in Israel, something big happened. The chief Sephardi rabbi, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, may he rest in peace, declared that Ethiopian Jews are Jews, and we have to do everything in our power to bring them from Ethiopia to Israel. In 1975, the Ashkenaz chief rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Goren, also announced that Ethiopian Jews are Jews, and we have to bring them from Ethiopia to Israel. It means that in 1975, in Israel, we have two different chief rabbis saying that Ethiopian Jews are Jews. And it means that the government of Yitzhak Rabin in 1975 have to apply the law of return on the Ethiopian Jews. It means that now we can take a flight from Addis Ababa to Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. But as I mentioned before, Ethiopia was a communist country. Israel was part of the United States of America. They went with America.
As an ally to the United States, yes.
Yeah, and that's why we didn't have diplomatic relationship between the two countries. So even though the law of return apply on the Ethiopian Jews, we were not able to take a flight in 1975 to Ben Gurion Airport here in Israel. In 1977, a big thing happened in Israel. The Likud party won the election, and the new prime minister, it's Menachem Begin. Now, Menachem Begin, one of the first thing that he did as a prime minister was to invite to his office the head of the Mossad at that time, Yitzhak Hofi, and he told him, bring me the Ethiopian Jews. That was one of the first
Wow.
thing that Menachem Begin did as a prime minister. The state of Israel offered a deal to Mengistu Haile Mariam. We call it the arm deal. The deal was that Israel will give weapon and advice to Mengistu Haile Mariam, and in return, all you have to do is to let some thousands of Ethiopian Jews leave the country. Mengistu Haile Mariam agreed, and in July 1977, the state of Israel sent Mossad agent to Ethiopia to start negotiate to bring the Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Israel. One of the people that they were asking help from was my late brother, Naftali Aklum. At that time, he was a teacher. The organization ORT, if you are familiar with ORT, they opened school in the 60s to prepare the community for the day that they will come, that they will make Aliyah. My brother was a teacher in one of their schools. He had a very good English. The Mossad people approached to my brother. They told him, listen, we have a pilot with the government of Ethiopia. Mengistu Haile Mariam is willing to let the Jews leave the country. We need your help to find and organize 120 Ethiopian Jews from a list they gave him. And those Jews were living in the city of Gondar. Now, I mentioned before the Sigd holiday. And the Sigd, it's a holiday that shows the longing of Ethiopian Jews to Jerusalem. Now, my brother understood that 120 Ethiopian Jews are going to fulfill that old dream. So my brother also wanted to fulfill that dream. He told the Mossad, if you want me to help you to bring those 120 Ethiopian Jews, I want to be one of them. The Mossad people told my brother, this is a pilot group. We will have more groups in the future. In the meantime, we need your help. So my brother saw those people coming from Israel to save his community. He said, I must help them. This is exactly what he did. He found, he organized, and he brought the group from Gondar to the capital city of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. And in January 1978, Adam, for the first time legally, Danny, for the first time legally, 120 Ethiopian Jews making Aliyah to the state of Israel.
Wow. I get chills just thinking about this and how he felt and how they must have felt. And your brother was, in a sense, a Mossad agent, and which with all the wonderful things that go with that title, here it was very pragmatic, doing something that they had waited. We'll talk about the history of the Ethiopian Jews in a moment, but it was 2,500 years waiting. This thing happened, and your brother was very much part of that. So it's an amazing thing.
This is history in the making. And, because of what he did in 1977, he became a wanted man in his own country. And to be a wanted man in Ethiopia under the regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam, it means that if they will catch you, you are a dead man. So my brother had to flee. The closest country he can run to was Sudan. But we have two problems with Sudan. Sudan is a Muslim country. It's not safe for a Jew to be there, but you can hide your identity as Jew. The second problem, we're speaking about a distance of more than 300 miles, around
Wow.
700, 800 kilometers, not by car, not by train, not by airplane, walking in the desert between the two countries. It took my brother a journey of more than 1 month to do the journey from Ethiopia to Sudan. When he arrived to Sudan, he went straight to the UN. They gave him a refugee certificate. With this certificate, he'd made his way to the capital city of Sudan, Khartoum. And in Khartoum, he had two things on him that worth something. One was his wedding ring, and the second thing was a notebook with some addresses of some Mossad agent that he worked with few months before in Ethiopia. My brother decided to sell the wedding ring. Now we have some money. Every normal person after a tough journey like this that have some amount of money will buy food, water. My brother took the money. He went straight to the main post office in Khartoum, Sudan, starting to send letters to his contacts telling them, it's me, Naftali Aklum. I'm in Khartoum, Sudan, save me. Now, think about the situation, Danny. It's the beginning of 1979, a black guy, Jewish guy in a Muslim country in East Africa sending a message. He's not sure that his message will arrive, but my brother is waiting another 5 months. In those 5 months, he is living as a homeless in the street of Khartoum.
Wow.
But after 5 months, Danny, not only that his message arrived, the Mossad decided to send a young Mossad agent, Danny Limor, to save my brother from the street of Khartoum and to bring him from Sudan to Israel. When the two of them met in Sudan, the journey of all Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Sudan started because they both understood that from Sudan, the Ethiopian Jews will be able to fulfill their dream. And listen carefully to the numbers. From 1979 until 1984, more than 20,000 Ethiopian Jews left their house, their village, their properties, going to the unknown. No one promised them that in the end they will make it to Jerusalem, but this community saw an opportunity to fulfill an old dream, to return back home. When my family started this journey, I was 6 months old. Now think about the babies like me. Think about adults that have to do a journey of more than 300 miles in the desert, and something happened to you on the way, you will die. They will bury you and they will continue. We don't have a doctor with us. We don't have a hospital near us.
Yeah, I'm stressing that you're walking those just as your brother did, 800 kilometers. They're walking this in the desert and knowing that if anybody sees them, it's not going to be easy. And as you said, the babies, families, if somebody gets sick, there are no doctors with you. This is an amazing, amazing story here.
And this is only the way. When we arrived to Sudan, because we were speaking about big amount of numbers of people, they put us in refugee camps. In those refugee camps, we had our own little Holocaust, because every day between 10 to 20 people died due to the food they gave them, disease. Many Ethiopian Jewish women were raped every day. And all this just because they wanted to return back home. And out of the 20,000, 4,000 Ethiopian Jews didn't make it and died.
Wow.
By the way, on Jerusalem Day, we celebrate Jerusalem Day here in Israel since 1967, Six-Day War, when we released Jerusalem from the Jordanian. On the morning of Jerusalem Day, the Ethiopian Jewish community have a ceremony on Mount Herzl alongside the president and the prime minister of Israel. And we remember the 4,000 Ethiopian Jews who didn't make it and died on the way. In Israel, Danny, we have 170,000 Ethiopian Jews living in the state of Israel, around 1.8% of the population here in Israel, a very small community. But in a way, almost every family lost someone in Sudan. I lost my grandfather in Sudan, but thank God we made it, and we made it to Israel in the 80s, May 1980.
Your family, and then you had
My family.
the big movement of taking all the Ethiopian Jews in 1990, I believe it was, which under Shamir, or 91.
Yeah, so we had before that we had Operation Moses. That
right.
was on December 1984.
Right.
Because many stuck in Sudan. It took families stay there for 3 years, 4 years, and then the government of Israel also decided to do an operation of one night to bring them as soon as possible. Airplanes landed in an enemy states like Sudan, and over the night they bring the Ethiopian Jews. That was in 1984, and then in 1991 we had Operation Solomon, which was, I think, the biggest operation the state of Israel ever done in bringing in bringing Jews from the world. In 72 hours, they brought more than 14,000 Ethiopian Jews in an airlift from Addis Ababa to Ben Gurion Airport. And that was a big thing.
We remember it here in Israel. I worked in the prime minister's office at the time, worked with Shamir, and I think it's one of the most memorable and heart-wrenching also events that I ever participated in, because for all of us, it was so meaningful to see them arriving. And every Israeli can identify with that, knowing how our own families arrived here. And just as you were talking before about how they took this from Ethiopia, walked all the way, they didn't have a pillar of fire ahead of them. They didn't have a pillar of smoke showing them the direction like the Jews had with the leaving Egypt back 3,000 years ago. All they had was their belief, and that guided them, that pillar of belief and strength in their beliefs that told them that this is the right thing to do. It's phenomenal. It's just unimaginable that people can have that spirit and that strength of belief to carry them. And this is it's an amazing story.
I always ask myself what my parents thought to themselves. What I mean, you live your life, and Ethiopian Jews were living quite a good life in Ethiopia. I mean, they had everything they needed: house, properties, land, and they left everything behind. For what? For a dream to return back home that they never saw, they only dreamed about. And for me, the elders, my parents, and all those people who made this journey and decided to leave everything behind, they are the real heroes.
Absolutely.
And their belief in God is something that it's unbelievable. And the closest story that I can think of that's similar to the story of the Ethiopian Jews, it's the exodus of Bnei Israel from Egypt to Israel.
Right.
And as a black man, I can also add to that this is the first time black people leaving the continent of Africa, not to be slaves in some other part of the world, such as what's happened in America or in Brazil, which they took Africans from Angola and Mozambique. The first time black people leaving this continent, not to be slaves, but to go back home and to return back home. It's the story of the Ethiopian Jews.
That's amazing. And uh, wow, I'm just overwhelmed just by the thoughts about this and the strength of character that these people had with them. But they were there for 2,500 years. And people don't realize they were not connected. The Jews in the diaspora, whether it was those who were expelled by the Romans and were expelled to Europe and had the connections, Jews were very connected there. And also the Jews who were expelled from the Babylonian expulsion, though many returned 80 years later under Ezra and Nehemiah, but many stayed. My family remained in Babylonia and then moved to Persia and then eventually to Afghanistan, but they still had a connection to the Jewish people, to the Jewish faith, and to Jewish communities. The Ethiopian Jewish community were on their own for many years.
We were isolated, and we didn't have any relationship to any other Jewish community in the world until the end of the 19th century. And that's why we fought for many, many years that we are the only Jewish community exist in the planet. And, Ethiopia as a country was the second country in the world to accept Christianity in the 4th century. And throughout the history of Ethiopia, always kings and queens wanted to convert the Ethiopian Jews. But we know we are the only Jews left. If we will convert, Judaism will disappear. And we gave our life in order to keep the fire burning within Judaism, because we knew if we will do it, Judaism will disappear. Because again, we fought that we are the only Jewish community in the world. And, a lot of people ask me, what is the difference between how Ethiopian Jews practice Judaism to how the rest of the Jewish world practice Judaism? We were isolated and we left after the destruction of the first temple. The Talmud, the Gemara, the Mishnah, what we call the oral Torah, the way we know it, all this came right after the destruction of the second temple. And we were isolated, which meant no one told us about this Gemara, Talmud, and Mishnah. So we kept Judaism exactly the way people kept Judaism during the time of the first temple, because we didn't change anything and we never add things. So if you want to call it, we might be the original Jews because we never change anything.
But you mentioned before, and I love this when you said that the Sephardic chief rabbi, and by Sephardic they mean those who came from Spain and were spread around the northern Africa, some of them in
Yes.
Bulgaria and Turkey.
Yes.
There's my family who were not Sephardic because they never made it to Spain. They were Eastern Jews because they left after the Babylonians. And then there's the Ashkenazi Jews in Europe. And you mentioned that the chief rabbi, the Ashkenazi chief rabbi and the Sephardic chief rabbi agreed that and recognized the Ethiopian Jews. And I love that because here you have two Jews, and we usually say two Jews, four different opinions. Wow, how amazing that two Jews agreed on something, that the Ethiopian Jews are part of the Jewish community and accept that. That on itself is a miracle right there, that the two Jews could agree on this. So we find miracles happening all the time.
Yeah, well, that's true, but of course, Rabbi Shlomo Goren, the Ashkenaz chief rabbi, and Rav Ovadia Yosef, the Sephardi chief rabbi, they even came one day and said, "Oh, the Ethiopian Jews are Jews." They rely on rabbanim from the past, from the 15th century, such as Aradbaz, Ravi David Ben Zibra, even Arav Kook, who was the founder of the Rabbanut here in Israel in the beginning of the 20th century. Even him said that Ethiopian Jews, but he didn't say it louder. He didn't write up Psak Halacha saying that Ethiopian Jews are Jews. But a lot of people, even before them, big rabbis said that before. But Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was the first rabbi since the state of Israel established to say it loud and clear. We need to bring them.
And he gave the credibility to the connection to the Jewish people. I'm not talking about faith right now. I'm talking about the Jews as a people, that they were a part, that was torn apart from us. And I saw somewhere you said they originated from the tribe of Dan. That's the belief among the Ethiopians.
Yeah, so there is a lot of stories of how Ethiopian Jews arrived to Ethiopia. Some would say the story of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. I'm more onto the story of living right after the destruction of the first temple and then going down to Egypt. And from Egypt, they walked through the Blue Nile River until they ended up in Ethiopia, and that's the tribe of Dan. And this is exactly what Radbaz, which was the chief rabbi of the Jews in Egypt in the 15th century, said at that time that they belonged to the tribe of Dan.
Wow. Amazing how these things, thousands of years go by and we still have those connections and that history of ours. Your organization, Yerus, what are you doing today here? And we can talk a little about how the Ethiopian community, which is very different. They also came not from a European or North African countries that were more connected to Europe because of European occupation of North Africa. They were very tribal. They were very different. So obviously, it would be very difficult to them to make that move and be absorbed in Israeli society, though I think we're now a third generation since then, the young generation, which are totally Israeli. But there were difficulties. So what is your organization doing, and how are you helping the adaptation of the Jewish community into the state of Israel itself?
So I think one of the challenges that my community is still facing today in Israel, it's the issue of their identity. In one hand, we're speaking about Black people. In the other hand, Jews, Israelis. So we have lots of identities within us, and you need to create one strong identity. And in order to create that strong identity, you need to know each and every identity within you. So we have a lot of young people in our community that don't know enough about the history of them as Ethiopian Jews, the history of the Ethiopian Jews in Ethiopia. So we want to connect them to their history of their forefather in Ethiopia. So we teaching them about the history of the Ethiopian Jews, also accepting themselves as black people. Being black is not easy, and when you are traveling in the world, you are always randomly selected in airport to be checked. People are, yeah, many things that so people have to accept themselves as black, to love their color of skin, and this is one of the important things that my organization is doing, dealing with the youth of the Ethiopian Jews, teaching them and make their identity even much more strong. The other thing that we are doing is telling the story here to the different tribes here in Israel, because I believe that the biggest threat to the state of Israel is not Hamas, it's not Hezbollah, it's not Iran. The biggest threat to the state of Israel is ourselves. If the Israeli society will not accept each other, will not know the story of each other, we will destroy ourselves. So, from my little place, I'm taking the story of my community. I'm sharing that story with my brothers and sisters here in Israel, and not only here in Israel, around the world. And one more thing that we are doing in Yerus since October 7, we found that the story of the Ethiopian Jews can do a big PR for the state of Israel, because a lot of organizations such as Black Lives Matter, who accuse Israel in lots of different things, uh, speaking of things that they don't know. And me, as a black man living here in Israel, I can answer them. I'm meeting a lot of diplomats from South Africa, a country that accuse Israel being an apartheid state. And as a black man, I can tell diplomats that coming, or journalists that coming from South Africa, that I'm not sitting in the back of the bus. I'm someone who can vote. I'm someone who can do lots of things. So I'm someone also that think that using apartheid, that term, is something that minimize the apartheid that happened in South Africa from 1960 to 1990. But I can say it as a black man, which a lot of Israelis will not able to say if they don't have the same color of skin like me. So I'm using the story of my community also to attack people who are accusing my country being an apartheid or a racist country.
It's amazing. There's so many aspects and angles of this because, as you say, to strengthen the identity of your own community. But I think here, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this is not only for our the battle of the war of words that is going on, but also inside of Israel for Israelis, because as I said in the opening, the Ethiopian community is reflective of what many of our people went through. And by talking about that story, we can all find an angle that reflects on every one of our families and reminds us of who we are. And knowing that it's not only for the Ethiopian community here in Israel, and this is not only true for the state of Israel, it's true for the entire Western world. If you don't understand your identity, if you don't know where you're coming from, you can be overwhelmed. And that, more than anything right now, is how our enemies, they're less successful here in Israel because we have that strong identity, community, etc., but also the religious strength of our society here. And the West can learn a little from that as well, of how the Ethiopian Jews maintain their identity in the state of Israel. I think it's a story that has to be told around the world and can invigorate people when they understand how it is also a sign of their own personal identity. So it's a wonderful story to tell.
Yes, yes, it is. And it's not only my story, that is part of the Jewish world stories. And, I believe that a man without the knowledge of his past original culture is really like a tree without roots. So we, as a people who live here, belonging to the Jewish nation, we need to know our stories. And my story is your story, Danny, and your story is my story. So, if you will stop a random Israeli in the street, Danny, and you will ask him, what do you know about the Ethiopian Jews? Most of them, they don't know. And we are living here 45 years. I'm not blaming them because no one teaches in school the story of the Ethiopian Jews. So I believe the Ministry of Education, not only the story of the Ethiopian Jews, uh, all different stories. I want to know more about my brothers and sisters from the Soviet Union. The brothers from the Soviet Union need to know more about the brothers from Libya. And we just need to know each other more. The more we will know each other, we will create a better society, better country. And just to add one more thing, since October 7, the state of Israel lost around 920 soldiers. Uh, 56 of them belongs to the Ethiopian Jewish community. It's more than 6% of those who fell, and we are only less than 2% of the population. So, we dream in the Sigd in Ethiopia. We fulfill that dream by this tough journey, and today we are a society, we are a community that also, protecting this country.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely. I didn't know the numbers were that big. I knew that many fell in this war. And all of us have, anybody who served here in the military, have brothers in arms, real brothers in arms, who are also of the Jewish community from Ethiopia, like every other one, as you said. But I never know that what they've given for this country is so much in such a small, short period of time here living with us all. Naftali, we could have gone through so many more things and angles, but I think that the essence of what you spoke has come across. And I want to thank you for all that you're doing, and you're partaking in the battle of that eighth front that I speak about very often on my show, the eighth front that Israel is facing, and your contribution to that, as well as the contribution as our brothers and sisters from the Ethiopian community in the actual battlefield. And let's hope that we have better days ahead of us, and that we're not only not facing external battles, but also within our society, we embrace each other in the way that the Ethiopian community, and see that their dream and how they realize that we can all realize that dream of being together here. Any last words, last thoughts that you have to share with us here?
Yeah, so I would like to thank you for the opportunity to come to your show and to share my story and my community story. And yeah, I just want to say Am Israel Chai, and we will have better days coming in front of us, in front of our country, our people, and well, we are all together as one. We need to be together as one always.
And if anybody wants to reach you, they can. Yerus has a website. It's
Yes, well,
YERSU. YERSU. Yerus. YRUS.
Yerus, it's YERUS, but my website is JewsOfEthiopia.com.
JewsOfEthiopia.com. We'll put it on our connection here, and they can reach out to you with groups. You speak to groups, and you're more than happy to share your story with other Jewish communities and any community around the world who's interested in this story. Naftali Aklum, thank you so much for being with us here, and thank all of you who've listened to us and took part in this program today. I'm Daniel Seaman here on Straight Up in JNS Studios, and we'll be with you again next week. Thank you very much.